Hello, this is your boy Feltad here, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Monday podcast. And there's been such an exciting week of Manchester City's football. Some things have gone well, and other things haven't gone well at all. Now, so last week I didn't upload a podcast just because there wasn't all too much to talk about in my personal opinion. It was relatively drab games. The Middlesbrough fixture where we won in the FA Cup, and also the Stoke 0-0 draw, which was very, very disappointing, must I add. But I have to say as well that it was my dissertation hand-in last week, so I was very, very busy and unfortunately just didn't have the time, to be able to upload a podcast. But today we have so much to talk about. Of course, the Monaco crashing out of the Champions League and the big Liverpool fixture on Sunday where City managed to get a 1-0 draw. Now, first of all, the Monaco game. So it was incredibly disappointing for myself, the supporters, and every person associated with Manchester City Football Club, I imagine, to have gone out of the Champions League at that stage, especially considering the fact that we won 5-3 in the first leg, which we looked so imposing, very, very attacking, very, very quality as a side, and I have to put the blame on the manager. I know he said himself that he's saying the players weren't convinced by him to attack. At the end of the day, why were we bothering to attack? I know I said this in a video the other day. I made a video criticising Pep Guardiola, just doing a bit of a satirical thing on my YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, it's called If Pep Guardiola Played FIFA 17. Basically, that's what it's about. But nonetheless, it was just a ridiculous system. Why he decided to play, it was just... I'm genuinely still so flustered by it. I don't understand why he's trying to reinvent the wheel, why he's trying to change the rules and dynamics of football. Basically, if you go to a team with a 2-goal advantage and you're expecting to perhaps go through, you play a defensive game. Don't give them anything early. And what do? 3 minutes in. Oh, come on, Monaco, just score. Come on, lads, just get your early goal. Then you're back in the game. Heads are down in Manchester City's perspective. I don't understand why we're trying to outscore teams. It's just such a frustrating concept. It makes no sense to me. Why the fact that Yaya Toure was on the bench for most of the game and Fernandinho was the only midfielder? It was a game which was crying out for 5 in midfield, 2 defensive holding midfielders, 1 going forward, wingers, fine, but they have to be working back more as a left midfielder and a right midfielder, not needing to bomb on as much. For me, I just don't understand Pep Guardiola's philosophies at times as much as I try to. I mean, I genuinely do try and back the manager, and I sincerely believe that he is the right man for the job at Manchester City, and I think some of the players unfortunately let him down in their ability. But for me, again, it's just his philosophy. He's the man who picks the team. He's the man who chooses what system we play in the fixture, and unfortunately, it just didn't work at all well. Credit has to go to Monaco as well. They're a young, very exciting team full of fantastic prospects, and although we got back into the game with 12 minutes to go, thanks to a goal from Leroy Sané, unfortunately we just weren't able to hold on because we're just not that sort of team. There's no way as this team we're ever going to perhaps keep many clean sheets in those sort of big fixtures, and yet again we surely weren't able to do it. I felt in the game that Aguero was remarkably strived of all service to him, didn't really get all too much help, and unfortunately we just weren't able to get that last goal which we so needed. The next thing I'm also going to criticise was also the substitutions. The reasoning behind only making one substitution on the 88th minute, you might as well go for broke. You're going out the Champions League, take a defender off perhaps, put a striker on, put Yaya Toure on at the very, very minimum. I don't understand why. I just don't understand. I'm so flustered by the whole decision making sometimes. I mean, I feel like even a guy like Stuart Pearce, probably one of the worst managers in my lifetime at City, not because of him, because of the squad which we had. I felt like he was probably more tactically dynamic at times than what Guardiola is. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the decision making which is happening. I don't understand why. I think the team is full of ageing players. Certain players didn't play too well in the fixture. De Bruyne constantly gave the ball away. I thought our fullbacks were poor. Why Kolarov starts at centre half, I just have absolutely no idea. It doesn't make sense to me at times. But I'm still going to put the faith in the manager. I'm always going to support Manchester City. I'm always going to support the club. And even though we do have these big failures, I mean, I don't think we were ever going to win the Champions League. We got to be realistic with ourselves. But I want to see us progress as a club and also get into the final stages of the Champions League year on year. I mean, we talk about every single season, is the Premier League better? Is the best league in the world? Is the Premier League the best league in the world? I don't think so. I mean, based on the top teams, they have the top players. I don't think so. It really does go to show every single season. You look at the La Liga sides, the sides which have progressed through to the final four of the Champions League. They've got 3 teams which is currently in the quarter-final stage of the competition. And to be honest with you, I can see perhaps all 3 going through. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think we are miles behind the quality of Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, perhaps even Barcelona. Even though we did beat them, I still feel like we'd probably lose to them over 2 legs. Juventus. I mean, these sides are far, far ahead of us. Also, perhaps Leicester. They seem to have cracked how to play European football straight away. Quick, dynamic, catch teams on the counter-attack, strong defensively. That's how you play the Champions League. We don't seem to have that idea. We don't have that knuckle down. But we'll move on to the big game at the weekend, which of course was the Liverpool fixture. Always a feisty one with Raheem Sterling, former Liverpool player, and also James Milner, and the way he's ungraciously called Manchester City out in the media this week. Seems to have a lot to say about Manchester City, James Milner, considering when he played for us he was a fan favourite, seemed to give his all for the club. It's strange that since he's left, which when he did leave to go to Liverpool, he was leaving on a free transfer. Didn't mention the fact that he was getting a signing on fee, despite taking massive wage cuts, allegedly. Got himself a £5 million signing on fee. Now, all I'm saying is, I mean, the guy's a bit of a snake. I mean, people call Raheem Sterling a snake. The reality is that James Milner is just as equally bad, perhaps. We all wanted him to stay. The fans loved him. Gave his all for the club, and I still think he's a fantastic footballer, just questioning perhaps his morals, celebrating last year, saying that Liverpool are the bigger and the better team than Manchester City, things like that, isn't really going to ever endear you to particularly many Manchester City fans either way. So I think his treatment on Sunday was completely justified. Raheem Sterling gets it in nearly every football team he plays out this year, whatever reason. Don't know why, if you're a Burnley fan, if you're a Stoke City fan, why you're booing Raheem Sterling. Don't really understand it. If he has ambition, he wants to win things, then absolutely fair play. Are Liverpool going to win a tournament this season? No. Has James Milner won anything at Liverpool? No. So there you go. For a man who said he wanted to leave City to win trophies and also to play central midfield, Howe's left back and winning 0 trophies since you left us, James. I imagine it's incredibly amusing. But nonetheless, we'll have to talk about the game. So we started off relatively brightly the first 20 minutes. Probably should have scored early doors. There was a huge chance for Raheem Sterling, the ball across the box, but was taken out by James Milner. In my opinion, it was a penalty, and I think it was an incredibly poor refereeing decision. There was also one slightly further behind. I think it was Kevin De Bruyne or Aguero. One of the two was being hauled to the ground by Clavan as well. And both were conveniently missed by the linos and also the referee and fourth official. Not quite sure how none of them were able to see that, considering it's so blatantly obvious as to why Raheem Sterling didn't get a foot on the ball. But nonetheless, after that, Liverpool came forward, had a few chances, perhaps probably could have had a penalty themselves on a couple of occasions. Wijnaldum went down. There's also Sadio Mane went down as well from Otamendi's challenge. I don't think that one was a penalty, but the Wijnaldum one perhaps was. Willy Caballero at his best in the first half, making some fantastic saves. I know on Sky, Gary Neville was criticising quite heavily for some of his crossing, but I don't think we've had a person at the club for a long time who's been that particularly adept at catching crosses from dead ball situations, apart from perhaps Costel Pantilimon, and that's just because he's 6 feet 8 inches tall. But nonetheless, I think Willie's done very well since coming into the club. He seems like his passing is absolutely exceptional, much better than Bravo as well. Really has been working on that, and despite being 34 years of age or whatever age he is, he's really shown a marked improvement since last season, and also can actually save shots as well, which makes a nice change from Claudio Bravo. But then the second half, of course, it all changed. Gael Clichy, I don't understand this guy. He's 30 plus years of age, and how many times has he been done by that ball over the top? How many times have we seen it against Barcelona in the Champions League, against Bayern Munich in the Champions League? Just a simple switch over the top, and he always just seems to not be able to read it. I don't know why. It's something he personally has to do much better on, and I don't think he ever will. I think he's well past his best at this stage. I think all our fullbacks, perhaps with the exception of Pablo Zabaleta, I think Sanya can still be alright, but he's not the same player he was last season, certainly as well. I think that we do need some new fullbacks, some new blood inside, and it will certainly help us. But defensively, again, Clichy was poor. Question marks over the penalty in that he won the ball, but if you're defending that poorly and you're also going in from behind, you're always going to give the referee and the linos, of course, the excuse to give a penalty. And you know what? I think if you defend that badly, you might as well just give the other team a penalty anyway. So I don't really have too much to complain about. James Milner, of course, took the penalty and scored it. Fantastic penalty, and I think he had a very good game. Of course, the goal for City came from down his side, though, with a lovely ball across the box from De Bruyne. He was a little bit better yesterday. Perhaps could have scored, and I think if he does score, his confidence will go back up again, but he's playing definitely a bit more of a deeper role, perhaps look better at right midfield once again, and I was pretty impressed with his performance overall. David Silva again was fairly good, but as lots of people are suggesting, I mean, the side does look a little bit fatigued at this stage, and the international break, sometimes that helps, but with a club like Manchester City, where the majority of your players are going to be playing in the international break, it's not really too helpful, and we've got some massive fixtures coming up. So to see this level of fatigue amongst the players is slightly concerning, especially given that we haven't rotated the team all too much relatively recently. At the start of the season, we were seeing people like Nolito coming for a game, Navas coming for a game, then other players, but at the moment he seems to be sticking with the same system, and at the moment it's being relatively detrimental just because of the fact that we haven't been able to keep these high levels of performances up. But once we got the goal back, we seem to be really in there and probably should have gone on and won the game. Of course, De Bruyne hit the post from a chance where Aguero, a little flick back from Leroy Sané, which was absolutely gorgeous, and Aguero, of course, just stumbled. Don't know why, he's lost his footing, probably should have shot first time, stumbled, and then had an effort, then De Bruyne bounced out and had a shot, unfortunately hit the post, and then we also had a chance with Raheem Sterling, ball comes through, tried a little chip over Mignolet, it looked perhaps like a penalty, then when you watch it again, there was no actual contact made with Sterling, so fair enough, good decision there by the referee. And a few other things as well to mention, of course, was that Adam Lallana sitter, absolute sitter. I don't really know how he's managed to miss it, and one of the better things about it is the fact if you just look down to the left hand side, you can see Roberto Firmino almost celebrating the left hand side with a little bit of a knee slide in front of Liverpool fans, which is absolutely hilarious. Really poor miss from Lallana, and I think he's overall a very, very good player. But my gripes, however, as the game went on, we missed a few too many chances. Aguero's missed at the end, tried to side foot it instead of getting his foot over the ball and just banging it into the goal. Probably should have done a bit better. Tried to sort of replicate the action he did against Monaco from the corner kick. Unfortunately, just wasn't able to get it into the far post. Now, at the end of the day, it was a 1-1. I think it was probably a fair result, and it leaves us third in the table, still ahead of Liverpool. We've got a game in hand, but of course that's against United at some point, so that's not all particularly helpful, because the way they're playing at the moment, they don't look like they're going to be beaten that much. I mean, we talk about City being fatigued, but United have played a ridiculous amount of games this season as well. They've been involved in every single cup competition, with the exception, of course, of the FA Cup, which they only went out to last Monday, let's not forget. They played 3 games in the last week, yet we're still able to beat Middlesbrough. I know they're not as good as Liverpool perhaps, but they still have high performance levels. Whereas us, we're looking slightly fatigued. We've got the game in hand, but we're slowly losing ground on Chelsea and Tottenham perhaps as well. I think with title races long gone. I think we accepted that fairly early on. But still, it would be nice to try and give them a bit of a run at it. But our home form this season is so poor. I don't understand how. We used to be such a fortress at the Etihad Stadium. We weren't beaten for seasons on end at times under Mancini. And I don't really understand where this mentality's come from. We're almost better away from home, and it fills me with greater confidence being able to go to Arsenal and Chelsea in a few weeks, even Wembley. I feel like we play better there than the Etihad Stadium at the moment, and there's a few things I think are at fault for this, namely team selections at times as well, so you can blame the players, also the way teams are coming to play against us, putting lots of men behind the ball. Liverpool didn't play like that at all. They always come and attack us, and I think that's the best way of playing against City at the Etihad Stadium, by having an actual go at us. I'm sure so many times they've actually crumbled. Whereas the Stoke game, very resolute defending, and were able to hold us off for the majority of the game. Whereas Liverpool, when they play almost like a 5-6 in midfield, they have sort of like 6 attacking players. They're so dangerous. And for us to only play one defensive midfielder in Yaya Toure, a guy who hasn't been able to move in about 4 years, he's like a walking fridge in midfield. Honestly, at times it's embarrassing watching the guy move, because he just can't do it. He needs someone next to him. And when we made the change to bring Sanya on, put Fernandinho in midfield. We looked so much better. We had so much more time on the ball. We had so much more movement and energy. And I just don't understand why we got rid of these defensive midfielders. I think at times you got to be brave and drop either Silva or De Bruyne. Not Silva though. Not Silva. I think, or perhaps put De Bruyne out wide. You've got to change things up every now and again. I don't feel like it's working with these too many attacking players. I personally feel that Toure or whoever's the CDM needs someone alongside them just to help them out, and especially the big games against Liverpool, because we're getting caught on a counter-attack far too often. And when Fernando came on, we looked a little bit more assured at the back. And I do sort of rate Fernando in the very bigger games. I think he needs to play in those sort of fixtures. But also the problem is atmosphere. Now, I'm not usually the sort of person who has a rant about Manchester City fans. I'm not sort of the person who goes into football Twitter account culture and sort of goes on about empty seats and all this sort of stuff. But I think we do have to acknowledge at a club what has happened recently. And I think as the club's grown, there is more and more glory hunter supporters, more and more people who are foreign supporters. Yesterday there was fans coming in from Indonesia and all over the world. You could see when we scored, from the zooms in on the crowd, there's a guy stood there with a Fluminense kit from Brazil. I know it's slightly odd just thinking back years ago, because I remember going to Main Road. I'm still of that age where I was able to go. Incredible atmospheres. Even when we first moved to the ground, the atmospheres were superb. And where I sit is in the family stand, and yesterday there was empty seats all over the spot. Considering the fact there's meant to be 3,000 people on the waiting list for Manchester City to get season cards, there are so many empty seats, and I'm thinking, where are these people? I'm on the Facebook pages where people sell and exchange tickets. People have been trying all week to pick up tickets on there, yet when I look on TV on the game on Sunday, there's empty seats everywhere. Why? I don't understand it. And the people who go to the game, especially where I sit, they just, if I start singing, people turn around and look at you like you're some sort of deranged idiot, like you've just been let out of the lunatic asylum. What is going on? Some of the people who are attending football games these days, especially where I sit. Now, I'm definitely looking to move in future because I'm tired of sitting where we are. It's just like the old Granny's Brigade and all these kids who don't really know any of the songs and just like pointing at players saying, "Is that Aguero?" "No, it's Fabian Delph, mate." That sort of stuff. It's just sort of getting a bit ridiculous where I sit personally. And the atmosphere at home games is very poor. We used to take the mick out of United for this, and to be honest with you, it's just as bad, if not worse, perhaps, at home at City at the moment. And it's a big problem, and I have great respect for the supporters clubs who are trying their utmost best to try and improve the atmospheres of football games. And one big problem is pricing. I think we all have to accept that football games and prices are just absolutely ridiculous. The working men, the people who used to be heading down from Moss Side, from all across Manchester, Swats Manchester City, the working class football club of Manchester, we have to accept where has that gone. I mean, looking around at some of the fans, thinking, look, there's all these empty seats here, people will be dying outside to get into these games. The prices are too much, and that's a problem across all football games. Big supporter of the 20's Plenty campaign, also a big supporter of the standing sections in football grounds. They will certainly improve atmospheres, and I would love to see those sort of things being introduced into the Premier League in the future. Whether that will happen or not, there's big legal implications of it. Also very, very sad historical events such as Hillsborough, of course, which will always sour things to do with standing in football grounds. But nonetheless, that's a problem which the FA will have to sort out in the future. But personally with myself, I'm very frustrated with sort of the tourist culture at Manchester City Football Club at the moment and the empty seats around the ground. And also another problem of people leaving games early. Yesterday, we're in the 90th minute against one of the biggest teams around in English football. It's 1-1, one of the best games currently have probably happened this season in terms of excitement for neutral viewers, and there's people leaving the ground early. Why? Why are people leaving the ground early? What have they got on which is so important? You got to get home and get the Sunday roast on or something. You don't go to the cinema and leave 10 minutes before the end. You don't do that. You want to see the end of the film. You want to see the end of the football game. Now, I perhaps can understand if you've got a train to catch the very last second, the last train, and if you don't leave, perhaps you will miss it. Or if you're in the car park, surely watching City to the last few minutes of the game. I just think back to all the people who perhaps walked out the ground when Sergio Aguero scored that goal in the last minute, who lost the faith. Now, I think All those people, you deserve that. Just because you get back to your car 5 minutes early and missing out on City. It's probably one of the greatest moments in history. So people leaving the game early, I'm having a big rant at you. I hope people in the comments and people watching this will agree with me that some things in football, modern football especially, is incredibly frustrating. I'm a supporter who goes to home games, away games, and will support City as much as I can, just based on finances, as much as I would like to be able to. And as much as people laugh at Arsenal Fan TV, I've got great respect to a lot of the fans who'll go to every single game, spend so much money. I think it's DT, one of the main guys from Arsenal Fan TV, says he spent around 70 grand in the last 10 years watching Arsenal Football Club, and that for me is absolutely admirable. And perhaps, although I don't agree with many of his opinions and things, perhaps I still don't agree with some of his points of views, I still admire him as a football fan and also lots of other things as well. But nonetheless, that's pretty much my rant over. Of course, in the upcoming week, it's International Week. I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait for England to play Lithuania. It's the highlight of 2017 for me. Cannot wait. But nonetheless, I've just about ended my rant there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Keep going on SoundCloud as well, guys. Don't forget all the previous podcasts are available on my YouTube. I've got a playlist for that as well. And also a SoundCloud account. I've also recently just hit 1,400 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you very much for that as well. Also, check out my SoundCloud account. I'm sure there's like a way of subscribing or something on there as well. So you can listen to that on the go away from YouTube. But nonetheless, thank you very much for watching, listening. Arrivederci.